It is Coast to Coast presented by CampusCanton.com. We're here like we are for you every single weekend at the close of the week. We still got some games going on. Caleb Williams benched. Is the Heisman Trophy all but locked up? We're going to get into all of that and more, but I need you guys to do two things for me. Two things. Jump in the chat. Jump in the chat and let us know where you are watching from. We want to know where people are from, what people are doing tonight when they're while they're watching us. And, of course, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you can know when we go live for Coast to Coast like you're watching right now, and the tailgate, 10 o'clock every single morning during the college football season. But we start every single Coast to Coast with the rundown. We're starting this week with the return of Caleb Williams after the bye last week. OU at Baylor. This game was very sloppy early on. Caleb Williams, ineffective, hurt, hand stepped on. Lincoln Riley not able to get the running game going, taking deep shots down. But the first half of this game was marred by interceptions, and it was a field position game. By now, we see that Caleb Williams was benched in that game for Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler just as ineffective, 4 for 6, 36 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Caleb Williams was actually 10 for 19 for 146. Just a bad day for the OU offense overall. Kennedy Brooks, just 3.9 yards a carry. Again, that led to just the offense being stagnant. Abram Smith, the guy getting it going on the running in the running game for Baylor in this one, and OU goes down. We saw that the committee already didn't respect them. They were ranked 8th in the playoff rankings, and now with a loss, you have to believe that their playoff chances are all but extinguished. But there's a bright future for that team with Caleb Williams at the helm, but we will not, I don't think, that we will see them in the playoffs. All right, the game that we were looking forward to, Brandon. Hey, you're a Michigan fan. Michigan at Penn State. This is Big Ten football at its finest. How did this one turn out today?
Yes, so now I'm unmuted. Yes, so early on, Penn State really controlled the game in the first quarter. James Franklin was throwing out everything. He had a fake punt on the first drive. They only got a field goal. They were down inside the red zone again. Did a crazy fake field goal. Was not a good decision. And they came away with the first quarter with only 3 points. And then Michigan kind of started getting the running game going and got the lead. But they just could not close out the team just like they couldn't against Michigan State. Penn State really came alive in the fourth quarter, and then Michigan was able to come back with a drive to get the lead for good. Penn State could not handle Michigan's defensive line. They had 7 sacks. That really affected their offense because Sean Clifford seemed a little healthier today, able to run the ball a little more. He only had 200 passing yards and 1 touchdown. So he was most of their rushing attack, but when they hit him so much, it really caused him to not be as accurate later in the game. And for the Michigan offense, it was mainly Hassan Haskins. He had 31 carries for 156 yards, 5 catches for 45 yards. Cade McNamara was, efficient enough with 217 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 to Roman Wilson and 1 to Eric All. And then, Jahan Dotson continued, his strong performance with 9 catches for 61, and Parker Washington chipped in with 4 for 92. It was a big win for
season with Parker Washington.
Yeah, so it was good to see him get some action there, but it was a big win for Harbaugh because it looked like it was going to be another road loss for him, but more questions for James Franklin and the Nittany Lions.
All right, Brandon. Michigan, Blake Corum out today. Hassan Haskins taking over for him. I mean, I think we care about those 2 running backs. I think we care about Parker Washington and Jahan Dotson and Theo Johnson. Jahan Dotson and Theo Johnson. But Big Ten football is just, when it comes to offense, it's a little bit gross, but good game today. All right, Brandon, we'll come back to you a little bit later in the show. Matt Bruning, your Ohio State Buckeyes taking on the giant slayer that is Purdue. Purdue has beaten two number 3 overall ranked teams, but they would not beat the Buckeyes today.
No, as much as we talked about that on the tailgate this morning, that this series between these two teams has been really close. Purdue has played Ohio State fairly well over the past 9 years. Ohio State, came away with a big win here, 59-31. I did not expect it to be this good. Aiden O'Connell, who had a huge day last week, kind of continued that again against a secondary that I don't think is that good for the Buckeyes. 390 yards through the air, 4 touchdowns. David Bell, while he didn't get a touchdown, did still get 100 yards. I think we said on tailgate this morning we thought he might get 150, so he fell a little bit short of that, but I talked about it. Denzel Burke, freshman cornerback for the Buckeyes, not getting a lot of love out there. He's been really good. He's not allowed a receiving touchdown on the season. He was locked up with Bell a lot in this matchup, and he did a really good job of shutting him down for the most part. So great job by him, at least, on that secondary. But overall, again, Buckeyes allowed 31 points. They got 2 tough matchups coming up this week with that against that state that we don't really like to talk about, nobody really likes. So it's going to be interesting to see how they can handle those offenses, both who run the ball very well, and that's something that Ohio State struggled with a lot earlier in the season. On the Buckeye side, Stroud, 361-5 through the air, looked really good. He was missing some plays early in the game, and that's, I think, why the game stayed as close as it was for so long. But Garrett Wilson coming back was huge. Not only got a rushing touchdown, he got 3 receiving touchdowns. Some idiot said to sit him on tailgate. I don't remember who exactly it was, but that guy looks like a dumbass right now because Wilson went off in this game, 126 yards receiving. JSN continues his ascent this year, 139 through the air with the touchdown. And Chris Olave, just 85-1. He had a 65-yard touchdown catch in the end zone, but got called back on a Jeremy Ruckert holding call where he was supposedly holding George Karlaftis. It did not look like that when they went back and watched the replay, but it did get called back. Your boy, Mine Williams, ran the ball out here in the second half. They decided to rest Henderson a little bit here in the second half. He still got 98-2, though, on the first half. Had that huge run. It was, I think, 50-plus, where he just turned on the burners and left everyone behind. And then they brought Mine Williams in. He had a little over, I believe he had actually over 100 yards in this one as well in that whole second half. So, they looked good overall. And like I said, they're going to have some very matchups here with Michigan State and Michigan on the docket.
Michigan State and Michigan left. We got to give some credit to that Ohio State offensive line. Some of those holes that Travion Henderson were running through were wide open, and he was just able to use his burst and speed and not even be touched on his way to the end zone. So hats off to – I shouldn't even say that. Hats off to that Ohio State offensive line. All right, thanks, Matt. Brendan, hey, get back in here as we go through the later slate. This Texas-Ole Miss game just concluded not too long ago, and Ole Miss really pulled out at the end of it.
Yeah, it was a tale of 2 halves. Really, Ole Miss controlled the game in the first half, but missed out on some opportunities in the red zone. So let Texas A&M hang around. Their defense played well in the first half. In the second half, Texas A&M really was able to run the ball and pulled within a couple points. But then they threw a couple interceptions, and Ole Miss was able to pull out the win. Isaiah Spiller wasn't able to do much in this game, only 41 yards, but Devin Achane had 110 yards. Jalen Weidemeyer and Aeneas Smith kind of came through in the second half. And for Ole Miss, it was really the Jerrion Ely show. He had over 150 yards rushing. Matt Corral had a decent game with 240 pass yards and 1 touchdown. He looked like he was moving a little better, but I think the biggest takeaway from this game was just how Ole Miss was able to play defense against Texas A&M and kind of stop them. And then it could have been a much bigger win for them if they could have cashed in on some of those red zone opportunities in the first half.
Yeah, Lane Kiffin is definitely making noise there at Ole Miss, and we got to see where he lands. I was trying to pull up the wide receiver rankings for the 2020 class because Damon DeMoss had a critical drop in this game, but computer's acting a little bit slow. Anyway, maybe we can go back to that later in the show. That wide receiver class is not looking too great at the moment, but we'll see. We'll appreciate it, Brandon. All right, Austin, we gave you what we thought would be an interesting assignment, but Brennan Armstrong did not play. and that made this game a bit of a snooze fest.
I've been very lucky with my game assignments over the past few weeks, so I cannot complain too much about watching possibly the worst college football game that I've had to endure this entire season so far. This game was truly, truly as awful as it sounds. Notre Dame won 28-3. And yes, the big storyline, the only takeaway here, Virginia, no Brendan Armstrong. It was rumored all week that he wasn't going to play. I think we had a pretty good idea by last night that he was going to be out. And so that basically nuked every option that you wanted there. I know we said on the tailgate this morning, sit Dontavian Wicks, sit Billy Kemp, sit all these kids that maybe you would usually play if Armstrong is there, because we did not know what the backup quarterback situation would really look like. It was bad, folks. Jay Woolfolk was the kid in there today, threw for just under 200 yards, a couple interceptions, no touchdowns, missing receivers kind of all over the place. And I mean, he didn't cost them the game, but they were never going to win with him in there. Wicks only had 32 yards. I mean, it just was a very underwhelming performance for most of the receivers there. The leading guy there was Thompson, who had 110 through the air and had another 20 or so on the ground. For Notre Dame, I mean, I guess the notables are Jack Cohn and Kyron Williams, but neither had, quote unquote, a strong game. Cohn was very game manager-ish, 15 for 20, 132 yards, 3 touchdowns and an interception there. Kyron Williams led the way on the ground as he usually does, 14 carries, 70 yards and a touchdown. And they had some other guys chip in. Michael Mayer had 80 and a touchdown. Logan Diggs, the freshman we've talked about a little bit, had 64 yards today. Kevin Austin had 38 yards. I mean, it was just a typical unsexy Notre Dame, wear them down, you just drag it out as long as we can. And I think it was 21-0 at halftime. It was so obvious Virginia was not going to score 21 points. So, I mean, the second half, I just sat there and kind of wanted to cry a little bit.
Yeah, Notre Dame has an outside shot. After almost losing to Toledo, has an outside shot at the playoff. Austin, let me ask you this about Kyron Williams. His skill set lends itself to a 3-down roll. He can catch the ball. He can pass block. He's going to be on the field a lot for an NFL team, or at least he should be. Do you think he could be a running back 1 at the next level?
I will never really rule that out, because I think being the RB1 is so much of it comes down to opportunity as opposed to, I mean, we've seen backups who take on a role that they were never supposed to have and finish as back end RB1s. So I would never say that it's not possible. I would not say that would be my expectation for him year on year. I would actually be a little bit surprised if he ever really held down a backfield by himself for more than maybe a season or some spot stuff here or there. But I mean, he can certainly be a very productive guy in the NFL, and a guy that's maybe you're happy if he's the 3rd RB on your roster or something like that, that's a valuable piece.
He's going to be valuable. One of the better running backs in this 2022 class, should he decide to come out. All right, we appreciate it, Austin. Matt Bruning, the last game that we are covering in our rundown today is the NC State-Wake Forest game. Wake Forest back on after taking a loss last week. Sam Hartman's been carrying some teams to victories this season with his play. But Devin Leary can actually spin it. It's my first time watching him today, and he's got 25 touchdowns and only 3 interceptions on the season. But this one was another high-scoring affair like all of Wake Forest's games are.
Yeah, I mean, Wake Forest did not look good early in this one. You mentioned Sam Hartman slinging it all over the place. He didn't quite look as in control as he did last week against UNC. Let's start with Devin Leary on NC State side here. I mean, 408 yards through the air, 4 touchdowns. Didn't get a lot of rushing work in this one. I think kind of a snub for not even being listed with the Davey O'Brien. I agree with you. He's been one of the really good quarterbacks so far this season. Outside of him, you had Pearson and Knight, who were okay in this one. Knight 30 yards on the ground, Pearson 36. Knight did return a kick, though, for a touchdown as well that gave them the lead early into the third quarter. Looked like they were actually going to keep up with them. They did for the most part, really kind of toward the end there in the fourth quarter. Almost got an onside kick to possibly come back and win this. Wake Forest, though, played really well. Mezzi, huge game here again, 133 and 2 through the air. As you mentioned, Sam Hartman, just 290. You did get the 3 touchdowns through the air and 1 on the ground, but 3 interceptions as well. He was turning the ball over a little bit more than I think you'd like. But again, looked really good against NC State, probably their best competition outside of UNC. And then A.T. Perry had a good game here as well for them. with 73 yards through the air, along with Stewart, who had 51 and a touchdown, I believe, Donald Stewart. So, nope, I'm sorry. I was wrong about that. It was just Barry. I don't know why I thought Stewart had a touchdown. But yeah, so I mean, overall, it was a very exciting game. It was fun to watch. A lot of offense in this one. Sam Hartman not quite as crisp and in control as he was in the game we saw last week against North Carolina, though.
Yeah, as good as Jakari Roberson and A.T. Perry has been, when I've watched Wake Forest, those two drop a ton of passes. And they are not necessarily separators. They're bigger wide receivers. And so if they're going to be possession guys that drop the ball, I don't know how they can be NFL wide receivers. But who cares for the moment? The players that you've got to start in your lineups. Just remember, they might be trade pieces later on if someone thinks that they're going to be NFL wide receivers. I've seen enough of those two where I'm just questioning it a little bit.
Yeah.
So, all right.
I don't really quick on that. He was targeted 24 times in this game, A.T. Perry, and only had 5 catches. I don't know how many of them exactly were drops, but there was quite a lot of them. So just to throw that out there.
24 times. Okay. All right, Matt. Well, let me let you bring in Austin here. So, and I will hand it over to you guys for headlines.
Get him out of here. I think you're muted, Matt.
I am. I said, hey, Austin,
Nice.
How are we doing today?
How
we doing?
How are you, Matt? I'm good.
I'm
good.
wonderful. Wonderful. It's been a really wonderful day, really wonderful weekend. So let's talk headlines here. The big one, bear down. The Baylor Bears upset Oklahoma and dashed their playoff hopes. Just kind of your overall thoughts on this. I mean, I think that kind of, not any of us were touting Caleb Williams as a possible Heisman winner, but there were a lot of people talking about maybe he gets that invitation with how well he has been playing. I think that kind of got dashed as well in this loss.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice year if you're a Heisman hopeful because nobody has pulled away, and there's only one undefeated team, and they don't have a guy that seems super obvious. So that's keeping some of these guys maybe hanging around that should not be in that conversation. Look, Caleb Williams wasn't great today, but he got. Everybody is just overlooking the fact he got hurt today. He wasn't just benched. He got his hand stepped on. Yeah. You could see him on the sideline, like flexing it, like it was giving him issues. Everybody is overlooking this fact that they want to make it seem like there's a quarterback controversy there. I don't think there's. If his hand is fine next week or whatever, they go right back to him, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, they went right back to him as soon as he was ready. You saw it on the sideline. I was watching the game too. Yeah, because as soon as you could see him talking to Lincoln Riley, they sent him right back out. There was no of like, well, maybe no. They sent him right back out. It was definitely because of the hand. I think they pulled him just to make sure he was okay. So yeah, I'm with y'all. I think that's being a little bit overblown. It's just a bad game, and hey, freshmen have those games, right? I mean, we got to remember this is his 4th game starting. Like he's going to have some issues here and there. Baylor, a good team. We talked about a lot on the tailgate this morning. Just like I talked about with Ohio State and Purdue, these two have just like this weird history where these games are always very competitive, even if one of the teams is not very good, which is usually Baylor's side. So they played well, they played good defense. So I'm not overall surprised by it, but yeah, it's definitely weird. So I really thought Oklahoma was going to be able to sneak into the playoff, but that looks like that is done for sure.
Talk about an entitled fan base. They were chanting for Malachi Nelson at the end of that game, who, for people that have not followed 2023 recruiting, he is the 5-star freshman they have coming in. My QB1 in the class currently. So, I mean, after they chanted for Caleb for all those weeks and he's put up the numbers he has, they were already calling for the new guy. So, fun.
Not really, but hey, you get what you wish for, right? I think that's exactly what they deserve by doing that. Speaking of recruiting, Dan Mullen, he's still looking for that chomp down there in Florida. What are your thoughts about him? I don't know how much of this is possibly been overblown. We know in the press conference, I believe it was 2 weeks ago now, they asked him about recruiting, and he was like, I'll talk about that when it's time to worry about recruiting. I don't know if that necessarily means he doesn't recruit in season. Maybe it's just I don't focus on that part. I'm not going to answer those questions right now. We see a lot of other coaches are not afraid to do that. I'll just use the team the team I watch closely, Ohio State. Ryan Day will talk about recruiting at any press conference anytime he's asked. Maybe Mullen's just not doing that, or maybe it is Mullen's just not that good at recruiting. Kind of what are your thoughts about that and the fact that they were down to Samford today for almost the entire game? And then they celebrated after winning like they won the national championship.
Yeah, I saw people excusing that video. And that's just mind blowing to me. As a coach, I don't know how you can allow that to go on in that locker room after they gave up almost 50 points in the first half to a Sanford team that is, in a lower division and is 4-5. It's not like you're playing South Dakota State or, a team that's mostly respectable from their respective divisions. Sanford is just not a very good team. And it looked for a while like Florida was going to lose that game. Look, Florida, a lot of these big schools kind of pull up in the recruiting rankings late. Like a lot of these guys will kind of commit early, and then the big names obviously don't at all until the very, very end. So those guys are still on the table. They can make or break a class there. Florida is the 22nd ranked class in the country right now, which is not great. I mean, they're in a very a fertile, great recruiting area there in Florida. Tons of the top recruits come out of there. They're 9th in the SEC. Their class currently. They've had 3 decommits in the past month, 2 4-star kids. One of them already has chosen his new home. I believe the other one is still deciding. But, I mean, they are hemorrhaging recruits, and if they aren't hemorrhaging, they certainly aren't adding any to the fold. We talked a little bit on the tailgate this morning, Chris and I did, in the second hour about just, what are the odds Dan Mullen is back next year? And we said, well, they got rid of the defensive coordinator. We'll see what happens with, Anthony Richardson and some of these guys that there have been rumors of them transferring. This Sanford game might have been the nail in the coffin, though, between that and the recruiting. And I mean, it's just, I don't know how much you can put up with there at a program that expects to contend every single year.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if he's back. I feel like a lot of what we've seen this year, just with the way he's handled certain things and the players as well, like, I wonder how much of that is Anthony Richardson really did get hurt dancing, and how much of that is maybe he's just like, I want to get out of here. I mean, we haven't seen a whole lot of positive talk from the players, and I'm with you. I mean, I'm all for a win. A win is a win, and you should celebrate it. But I was just like, wow, like you guys are celebrating like you won the Natty because you guys came back and beat Sanford, which maybe that is a good thing, right? I mean, they were down pretty big by Sanford, and then they were able to come back and beat them. So I guess that's worth celebrating. I got a lot of crap on Twitter today for this one, so I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. Has Kenneth Walker walked or ran his way to the Heisman? I know, man. I've worked really hard on him. Looking at this, you and Felix just talked about this a minute ago, or Felix at least brought it up with the Matt Corral thing, and none of these guys have really separated. This is a really close group. And the one thing I guess I would put in Kenneth Walker's cap is he's been good in every single game. And even in their loss, it was not on him. He ran for 146 yards and a couple touchdowns against Purdue last week, even though they got beat. I think he has a really good shot to do close to that, if not better, against Ohio State this weekend. Again, even if they lose, I don't think it's going to be because of him. Or do you think that because it's typically a quarterback award, it's likely going to go to a Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, or Matt Corral, who seem to be the other 3 that are getting a lot of talk up at the top?
I did predict before the season, my bold prediction on the C2C pod was that a non-quarterback won the Heisman. So Kenneth Walker would be good for that particular prediction. You don't want to hear what my best guess was. It's not close. But like, if any of these guys win it, they'd be the worst Heisman winner in the past decade, right? Like,
Probably,
it's just not, it's not a good field. Kenneth Walker's a good player. If you said, like, if you just asked me to watch Kenneth Walker and I could watch him like without a jersey or anything, like no context, and you said, is this a Heisman winner? I'd be like, no. Same for Matt Corral. Same for Bryce Young. No, again, nobody on Georgia. Caleb Williams has played 4 games. Give me a break. I mean, you can just go down the list, and all these guys have huge issues. I would say if I had a vote and I had to vote tomorrow, I would probably vote for Kenneth Walker because I think he's been the best player on a top 10 team that was not expected to be a top 10 team and would not be a top 10 team without him. The only other guy I think that has that on his resume is Matt Corral. They're obviously not top 10, but they're close. So, I mean, but I don't like that. I mean, it doesn't feel nice to say.
No, I'm with you, but someone has to win the award. So I agree with you. I think it's going to end up being Walker. I think he has to go out and have a good game, though, next week against Ohio State. I don't know that they win that game. If they don't, and he still goes out and runs for 150, or if he has like a Michigan-type game, right, where he's the one keeping him in the game, runs for 200 yards, 3 or 4 touchdowns, and then Stroud is able to drive down the field, and they end up winning. I don't know that gives Stroud the Heisman over Walker. My biggest fear is, and I know I'm going to get all the Stroud haters coming out because everybody thinks I hate CJ Stroud. If he ends up going and winning out the rest of the season and gets into the playoffs, I think he's going to back into the Heisman because his stats are really good, even though I don't think he's played that well. And that's just going to make it even worse because I don't think he deserves it either. But it's definitely an interesting discussion. I think at this point in time last year, it was really kind of coming down between 3 Alabama players in Devonta Smith, Mac Jones, and Najee Harris. And we knew it was going to be one of those 3. I mean, we've got 4 guys, and I think you could literally like flip a coin for any of them and make an argument. But I think it's really, in my opinion, at least kind of got narrowed down to Kenneth Walker and Matt Corral. Last but not least, we saw Oklahoma get beat, but that's really it. The rest of the other teams up in the top have won. Oregon's playing right now. How do you think the playoff committee handles everything on Tuesday night?
I mean, I think it's going to be, still Georgia number 1. They're not going to shift. I think Bama stays number 2, convincing win. I'm going to say it's Ohio State and Oregon with Cincy 5. But I mean, for all the people that are mad about Cincy, they still control. If they win out, you really only have to hope that one team loses in front of you. I think not Georgia, but the rest of those teams, if any of those teams loses again, Cincy gets in. So fear not. Yeah.
I think you're rooting for one thing, and that's Georgia to win out. Because if Georgia wins out now that Oklahoma lost, I think Cincy's in no matter what. They're not putting a 3-loss Bama in. If Bama wins against Georgia, then I think Bama and Georgia are locked in, which then means you've got Cincy fighting for 2 spots. And I think one of or both, if Oregon Ohio State went out, they're both in. So if Georgia wins out, that could open up 2 spots because I could see Oregon or possibly Ohio State losing one more game, and then that knocks them both out as well. So there's still a lot of chance I agree with you, for Cincinnati to get in. I think it stays the top 4, and then Cincinnati at 5, and Oklahoma's loss today, unfortunately, kind of knocks them out of that race.
And we're obviously going to do a left coast check-in here a little bit later, but Oregon's in a little bit of a fight right now, so we might have to have this discussion come tomorrow.
Not surprising, because if you look at what they've done the past couple of weeks, they've been in a lot of close games against not very good teams, so I would not be surprised. But that does it for us on headlines. Austin, I believe you are running the panel here, so I'm going to throw it to you.
Darn right, I'm running this panel. Let's bring everybody in here. What's going on, guys? How's everybody doing? Long time no see.
Yeah.
All right. Let's as we do every week, guys. We talk about value shift, whose values have changed the most. They can be up, they can be down. Brandon, let's come to you first. Do you have one guy that really sticks out to you that's value changed the most today or this week?
Yeah.
I guess some action and stuff happened.
Yeah, so I think it's been the past few weeks, and I guess for the season, just the perception of him. But Deuce Vaughn had another good game today, and I think the big thing with him is a lot of people, based on his size, just think he's going to be more of the a passing back at the next level. But he has been able to rush the ball quite a bit. He has 4 games, he has 6 games over 100 yards this season, and 4 games with over 20 carries. And he just consistently has been doing that for that Kansas State offense. So I'm not going to say that he can be a starting running back in the NFL, but I think his value is going up in that he's going to be more than just passing back. That's level.
Yeah, he is definitely starting to round out that profile a little bit. Mr. Sharp. You can't say Tyler Van Dyke, but who else raised their
Tyler Van Dyke, who had an excellent second half there against FSU in that rivalry today. No, it's not Tyler Van Dyke. It's Braylon Allen. I think you have to consider Braylon Allen to be easily. I mean, he's probably the RB2 for the 2024 class after Travion Henderson. He doesn't even really know how to run yet. I mean, you see him breaking tackles where he bounces defenders off of his body without even lowering his shoulder. I saw a run today where, he was high stepping and his knee hit the chest of the defender. He doesn't even protect himself out there. Reminds me very much of Chris Carson, who actually does protect himself, now, but very, very Oklahoma State Chris Carson, just kind of running over people. So it's Braylon Allen has really shot up my rankings. Is in the top 15-ish now. I can't remember exactly where he is, but he's won he's one. I mean, I don't know if you guys want to talk about Jameson Williams. I mean, we could talk about Jameson Williams and his excellent performance today.
We actually have a moratorium on no more Jameson Williams.
This is what I want to say about Jameson Williams. This is what I want to ask about Jameson Williams is he is headed towards first or second round draft capital. I mean, an Alabama receiver performing like this, they just get first or second round draft capital. And I don't think that any of us believe that he is some sort of alpha or number one. I think that he is a very good number two. And could he have value at the next level, maintain his fantasy value? And I picked some of these teams where he would be like the perfect fit. Seattle, Los Angeles. I'm not going to say Kansas City because everybody says Kansas City. Los Angeles, Buffalo.
Which LA team? Sorry.
The Chargers.
Okay.
Cleveland, playing the number two to Jarvis Landry and stretching the field. San Francisco, Atlanta, number two to Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts. I mean, I think that those would be excellent spots for him where he can do the things that he's doing now. I don't know that anybody's going into games trying to stop Jameson Williams. And if he landed with any of those teams, that would continue to be the case. Like if he landed with a team like Detroit or Detroit is off the top of my head because that's my team. I don't think that would be a good situation for him. Not just because the team sucks, is because I think that he's the only thing that you would have to stop in the passing game. So, and I would also like to. So I think that he's situation dependent at the next level. Does that make him a sell now? Is his value in C2Cs, when you consider the college side and the NFL side, is his value ever going to be higher than it is right now?
The only way is if he gets that first round draft capital, right? Because I think you still hear a lot of people say day two. I mean that.
Yeah.
Anybody else? No. The Raiders would be a cool spot. Replace Ruggs there.
That'd be the perfect place for him to go.
He feels like a Raider. Like they would probably reach on him.
Yeah.
First round. There's your first round draft capital. So.
Yeah. That's
possibly
what's his name? I can't remember the owner's
Darius
name.
Hayward Bay. Darius Hayward
No.
Mark
Owner
Davis.
Mark Al Davis.
He has better
That's
hands
a
than
perfect
Darius
Al
Hayward
Davis.
Bay.
Al Davis pick right there. Yeah, I've got. Now that I did all that talking, I completely forgot who I was going to bring up here. Let me double check who I was looking at.
I mean, I could do some more talking if you want me to. But.
Let's not have you do some more talking. I'm going to stick in the Texas game. I was paying very close attention to that. I mean, I know we've talked a lot about him, but holy shit to Xavier Worthy, who had himself a game. I know at least 3 touchdowns. I didn't watch like the last 2 minutes of this. On a hurt ankle, too. He got his ankle twisted on a sideline. He tried to make a catch on the sideline, kind of got pushed down. Was limping really bad. I thought he might be done for the game. Comes back out, does that. And I don't want to say stock down, but a little bit worried about possibly Bijan, which we'll talk a little bit about him in here later. But looks like a possible serious injury to that arm. What that might mean for his future. So, Texas all around, though. Lose to Kansas, I think stock down for everybody. Casey Thompson, game manager, Hudson Card's going to switch to cornerback in a year. Like, it's not looking good for any of those guys.
You're just so desperate to have Travion Henderson looked at as the overall RB1 that you just
he is the RB1. I don't even know
slander
what
Bijan
He is
Robinson.
not the RB1. The RB1 is Jameer Gibbs. That's who the RB1.
Yeah, we know you've been spamming the C2C account with Jameer Gibbs highlights. We saw. Don't worry about it. Travion Henderson.
He's the RB1.
I like it.
Go ahead, Austin.
He's not the RB1, but I think the distance between RB1 and him as the RB2 is a lot less than anybody behind him, truly, in that class.
The only thing that Bijan Robinson has on Jameer Gibbs is 20 pounds. That's it. I mean, Jameer Gibbs, when he has space, is an excellent runner. To be 205 pounds, he is a super physical runner, and he is a deep threat out of the backfield, and he can return kicks. I mean, he's the RB1.
Bijan can return kicks too. So can Travion. I think that's what I like to see those guys do early. I'm shocked that Georgia Tech still has him back returning kicks every week. You guys, Felix, you always talk about how we always like our top end guys, and that's who we focus on. And all of you guys go for these obvious names. How about Donovan Smith, freshman quarterback at Texas Tech, who had himself a day there? Texas Tech upsetting Iowa State on a freaking 62-plus yard field goal as time expired. Shout out to that kicker. But Donovan Smith, 25 for 32 today, 322 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. They've got a new coaching staff there in Texas Tech. They're already pulling in recruits. I think they've already gotten 3 commitments since this guy started last week. Are they building something there? Who's to say? But I mean, Smith could be the guy there for the next couple of years. He was a 3-star athlete coming out 2020, sat out last year. I believe he suffered a preseason injury. And so, no game time for him. I doubt he would have played anyway. But I mean, he's 6'5", 230. I mean, Felix, you got to go watch this kid. You would love him. Just a big athletic guy. He can work outside of structure, but just kept that offense humming today. He's got some tools. He's intriguing. I think he's going to be a mustache player down the stretch here if your leagues allow waiver claims down the stretch. And don't be surprised if he's the starter over Baron Morton, a guy that we all liked, or Tyler Shuck, infamously Walter Football's quarterback 1 coming into the year. I mean, this kid is going to have the leg up on some of these guys because it appears the staff likes him. So that Donovan Smith is a guy that was, totally not on my radar at all. And now I'm paying very close attention. I think that's a major stock up.
This is why you got to love college football, because if there was going to be a freshman taking over there, we thought it would be Baron Morton. Alan True came on this show and talked about his love for Baron Morton. And then this is a kid I've never heard of. So that's why I love college football, because these names are there are always new names, always new characters coming into the story. So there are a couple of names that we've got to throw out here. Do we have time for that? Can we do that?
You have 30 seconds.
All right. Listen, Mayan Williams was excellent today, as Matt Bruning said. Travion Henderson has exactly one more 100-yard game than Mayan Williams, even though Mayan Williams missed time earlier in the season. Mayan Williams is averaging just 0.1 yards less per carry than Mr. Travion Henderson, the superstar there, and James Cook. I as a value in this 2022 class, I think that you have to consider James Cook. He has a bit of that slasher style similar to his brother, and he's also excellent in the passing game. He's probably like 190 pounds, so that's the problem with him. That is what he's listed at. Okay. Yeah, but he's very, very well-rounded. He's been productive and efficient in his role there at Georgia, but he's never been the primary guy. Was the primary guy today, involved in all aspects of the offense. 10 for 104 and 2 on the ground, then 3 for 43 and 1 through the air. He's a guy that if he gets with the right team, he could have a real boost in value as far as fantasy goes, even in a third down pass catching role. He could be a real value next year, even as a guy that goes in the fourth, fifth round. So
yeah, we have a little bit of a college football chat with some people, and we were talking about him today, and fifth round seemed to be about consensus. Yeah. So we'll see. I think his weigh-in is going to be very, very important when he comes out this year. All right, guys, thank you for joining me here on this lovely panel. We will talk to a few of you guys here later. I'm going to be joined here momentarily, though, by the man, the myth, the legend himself, Kevin. How's it going tonight?
Hey, I'm good. How are you doing? Just wanted to, Travion Henderson is the running back one, but we'll move on from that.
Your Michigan fan card has been revoked.
Well,
just leave that in your badge and your gun on my desk, and you can leave now. Yes, guys, Kevin Coleman, co-host of Debbie Royale, here with us, contributor at Fantasy Pros, contributor here at campus2canton.com. You can find him on Twitter at DuBois_22. Kevin, we like to come out to you here for this Left Coast check-in because you are our only presence on the West Coast. We might have to look into that in the future. So you're not all out there on an island by yourself, but let's talk about some of these games here. Colorado, UCLA, I think this game actually just wrapped up. What did we get here?
Yeah, this game just got over. UCLA won 44-20. They pretty much they were down 2010 at the end of the first half, and they reeled off 34 unanswered points in the second half. So really, it came down to Darius Thompson. He had a great game. Robinson had 257 yards to the air. He had 99 yards rushing and a touchdown. Charbonnet had 17 carries for 67 yards and 3 touchdowns as well. So it'll be interesting to see what Charbonnet becomes. I'm still not super high on him. I know some others are. But he did have 3 touchdowns in this game. Dolchitz had 87 yards. Kevin Phillips had 99 yards and 8 receptions. So on the UCLA side, they kind of woke up a little bit. DTR being fully healthy, it looks like he's better. Colorado still sucks. I don't know if anybody knew that, but Colorado is not very good at football this year. Broussard did have 16 carries for 108 yards. So that's good to see for some of those guys out there. But they're just so inefficient through the air. I mean, Lewis had 158 yards passing. That was it. They really focus on the ground, but that offense, they got to fix a lot of things there. So UCLA gets a nice win, especially for being at 5-4.
Yeah, big win there for them. Oregon, number 5, Oregon. They're in a dogfight here. The second half just started. We've got 14-14 all.
Yeah, it's funny. I picked Washington State to cover in this game on the show on Tuesday because I don't trust Oregon, and it was 14 points. So we'll see if I'm right though. Oregon gets the ball in the second half. They were up 14-0 in the first quarter, and then Washington State rolled off two touchdowns, 14 points unanswered. So Oregon's got to bounce back. Anthony Brown is not a perfect quarterback by any means. Tonight he's 11 for 14 for 75 yards and a touchdown. Through the running game, they really missed Verdell, which is something I never thought I would say out loud. But Travis Dye, 6 carries for 39 yards and a touchdown. Brown also has 44 yards on the ground. Cardwell's getting a little bit of run right now, so that's something to look at. He had 2 carries for 27 yards. McGee as well. Through the air, though, it's just kind of like, hey, who's going to get them that ball? And no receiver is really popped off this year for them. Travis Dye does have a touchdown through the air. On the other side, Washington State, we know Delore is there. He has 109 yards and a touchdown. Nothing through the ground. I mean, Borgie has 23 yards, but the whole next CMC thing, I think, is finally over. If you're looking at through the air and who we could say, hey, he's having a pretty good game, Calvin Jackson Jr. has 2 catches for 74 yards, so that's good to see there. But I don't know. It'll be interesting. Oregon's got to pull this thing out, but I can see this getting very close, 3 or 6 points.
And it looks like just Oregon just scored, like literally as you just finished talking. So I don't even know who has the touchdown yet, but it is now 20-14 there. And we maybe we'll give you guys an update at the end of the show here as that game continues on. Nevada, San Diego State, the fighting Carson Strongs there for the Wolfpack. No Cole Turner rolled out right before the game. He was in concussion protocol here all week. And as I think most people kind of predicted, that offense is struggling there now with 2 of their big pieces down in that passing game.
Yeah, I mean, San Diego State's winning 17-7 right now, and that was always going to be a tough matchup for Strong. This defense is pretty good, and if you look at Strong right now is 18 for 23, 136 yards and a touchdown, so nothing bad. But we all know that they can't run the ball. Tower is there, Toa Tawa. He has 7 carries, 29 yards. Carson Strong has minus 16 yards. I thought Felix should know that. Receiving wise, if you're looking at receivers and what's going on in Nevada, Torrey Horton has 3 catches for 36 yards and a touchdown. Stovell has 44 yards. Dubes has 24 yards. But without those weapons, this Nevada's team slowly been falling apart all year. It'll be interesting if Strong can go. San Diego State's going to do now that they're up, we know what they're going to do. They're going to give the ball to Bell. Greg Bell has 14 carries, 102 yards. He has no touchdowns, but they're just going to rush and lean on both the Bells and go there. And I think that's going to be a good thing for them. I don't know if San Diego State has the offense to hold them Nevada up, but like you said, because those injuries are there, I don't see them coming back. We'll see what Strong can do now, because Strong had a pretty bad outing last week. We'll see if he can bounce back.
Yeah, it could just be a case of one too many injuries there to overcome for Nevada. Last one here that I've got for you. It is at halftime right now. Utah State, San Jose State. Utah State's been a bit of a surprise this year. We thought they'd be okay. They're sitting at 7-2, and they're up by 10.
Yeah, you know what? They have a outside shot looking at that Mountain West. I know they lost I know the Boise game is there. Right now they're first in their Mountain Division. And so when you're looking at that, you're like, hey, could they do something here and make it to a conference championship? And they might. They're up 24-14 at San Jose State. Logan Bonner is a kid that I think he's erratic, but he's fun to watch. 119 yards and 2 touchdowns so far. When you're looking through the air, Devin Tompkins, they're all pro receiver, 5'5" guy, looks like me. 1 catch, 43 yards. That's about it there. They've really just kind of done it through the ground, and you look at it, and they've been moving the ball around. I think it's 7 different players have caught a pass in this game for Utah State. So they're moving the ball around. On the other side, Starkel's come back from San Jose State, but hasn't been the same. He's 65 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Nevins has a score on the ground, but that's it. Their offense does not look great. Utah State scored 24 points in the second quarter. So if they can hold on here, they have a chance to make it. They're on the driver's seat right now in the Mountain West. And if they can do that, it'd be a great story to see them make it to the Mountain West final.
Very, very quietly hanging in there for Utah State. Kevin, thank you so much, as always, for spending a few minutes here with us to check in on all these West Coast games. Again, guys, you can find Kevin at DuBois_22 on Twitter, and you can just find him virtually everywhere. But go check out everything that he does. Kevin, thank you for hopping on here.
Yeah, no problem, guys. Have a good show.
You too. All right, let's get everybody back in here. Felix, Mr.
Back
Hay,
in, back out.
Mr. Matthew Bruning. All right, guys. We usually just kind of do a little wrap up here at the end. Some games that maybe we didn't deserve headline talk, but they are here now. Let's talk a little bit about this Kansas-Texas game. Kansas upsetting Texas there. They were, a 14-point dog? Or no, a 30-point dog, I believe. It was the original spread or something close to that. Got up big early and held on. You mentioned earlier Matt Xavier Worthy with the big day and Bijan going down there. What is going on at Texas? Should we be worried about Sark? Should we worry about Bijan? Is the house on fire at Texas? What are we doing?
No, I think a lot of it comes down to the quarterback position, and just the defense isn't good. That's just the end of the story there. Casey Thompson, for all the flack we give him here, he's not a bad quarterback, but he's dealing with some kind of thumb issue. If you watch the game, you can see he's truly having trouble, passing the ball. He cannot throw. He missed Bijan earlier on like a flat route who's wide open, missed through the ball there to him. A couple to Xavier Worthy as well. And then every time Hudson Card comes in, he just doesn't look good. And as soon as he makes like one bad play, Sark just pulls him. Doesn't give him any kind of chance to actually get into any rhythm. So I think that's it. I think the big question is, I'm not a doctor. I posted the videos. I took some videos on my phone of the Bijan thing. Jeff Mueller, who does a lot of stuff for DLF, and he's a guy that physical therapist usually gets his injury stuff right. It looks like he's got a broken arm or something with his elbow. His arm goes kind of floppy after he lands on the ground. It looks like the bone is kind of sticking down on the bottom of his arm there. Felix has mentioned it before about him possibly sitting out. I think there's an even more realistic shot now. This kind of injury, come back next year, I don't know that Texas is going to be any more improved than they are right now. They're 4-6. What are they? Maybe 2 more extra wins. They're not going to be in the playoff contention. Why do you come back and risk getting another injury when, again, I think he's at worst a day 2 pick or a round 2 pick next year. I think he could be a first round pick if he plays and balls out again, but worst second round pick with that. And it looked bad. He looked in pain as soon as he went down. They covered his arm up with the towel. It was not pretty. Why risk it?
Felix, should he go get the bag?
It's just crazy to me that we're talking about Bijan Robinson potentially being a second-round pick. That just shows you how much the game has evolved. If 10 years ago he would have been easily a top 10 pick, and now we're talking about, Matt's right. He could potentially be if Jonathan Taylor was a second-round pick and DeAndre Swift was a second-round pick, then Bijan Robinson might be a second-round pick. That's absolutely crazy to think about, but you see how much value Saquon Barkley has given the Giants, and so teams have actually learned. So, he should sit out. There's no reason. He's established his draft capital. He should absolutely sit out, as I've been saying.
Oh, have you now? I don't remember that. Do we have any other games today that we really want to cover, guys? It was a very odd day in college football. I think,
Well, let's give a nod to Devin Neal in that Texas Kansas game. He had 124 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. He had another 24 yards in the air. We talked about Travion Henderson and Braylon Allen. Devin Neal is right there as a top 3 or 4 back in that 2024 class, along with the Arkansas running back. I don't know
Raheem
how Rocket
Sanders.
Rocket Sanders is right
Will
there
Shipley.
with him. Yeah, Will Shipley too. I want to see Will Shipley get involved in the passing game. But yeah, that running back class is starting to look as it has some strength to it.
Yeah. Another big Georgia win. I mean, I don't think there's anything noteworthy there to discuss. That train just keeps on rolling.
There is one thing I'd like to mention. I don't know that it's a big thing, but Tennessee did get up on them right at the beginning, and it didn't affect them at all. I've heard a lot of people say, if a team gets up on Georgia, will that affect them? Can Stetson Bennett bringing them back? It was no issue whatsoever for that offense. So I just thought I'd throw it out there. And maybe it's because Tennessee really didn't keep their foot on the gas after that. But it was interesting to see that happen. And then Georgia pretty much just kind of ran all over him and passed all over him with James Cook.
It was truly amazing. All of the Tennessee fans that were thumping their chests, saying, "We're back, baby," as they're down 24-10 at halftime. Honestly, I don't know why so much Tennessee stuff was coming up on my feed today. Rachaad White had another big game. I mean, is there anything to talk about there with him? He got upwards of 40 fantasy points, depending on what format you're playing there. 184 yards on the ground on 32 attempts, a couple of touchdowns, 5 catches for 53 yards, I believe. And I think he had the game-winning score there as well. I mean, in a very, very tight win for Arizona State. That's that's a big performance. Top 5 back in the class. Should he be talked about in that way?
I still worry about how athletic. I love Rachaad White. When we were doing our 2021 breakouts back in November, December of last year, I think Rachaad White was one of the first 2 names that I mentioned. I still wonder if he has the athleticism. He has the size, but is he a great size-adjusted athlete? I wouldn't be surprised if he went to the combine and ran in the 4.6 range, which doesn't bother me because I liked Ramondre Stevenson, but he might be a Ramondre Stevenson level athlete. And that's going to prevent him from being like a day 2 guy, might be an early day 3 guy, but I'm still going to like him because he can catch the ball and he can do everything. So,
yeah, I think it's hard to say, is he locked in as the number 5? But I think Spiller, Hall, Walker, and Williams are all probably safely ahead of him. Then who else do you put ahead of him? I know, Austin, you like Jerome Ford, but he doesn't have the receiving upside that Rachaad White has. You're going to put Tyler Algier there? I don't know. I think as much as I like Algier, I'd probably take White over him. Zamir White, I don't think so. Tyler Goodson, no. Maybe people put Zach Charbonnet over him. I wouldn't. And, I don't think Zach Charbonnet's that good. So, I think he's definitely in the discussion, if not leading the discussion, for a top 5 back right now in the 2022 class.
Brandon, is he in your top 5 backs, and if not, who do you like more?
Yeah, I would say he's in the top 5. I think one question would be Arizona State after this year, since most likely he'll be leaving, because he's kind of been their whole offense, because Daniels has just not shown the improvement and everything in the passing game. So I think and Chip has continued to fumble the ball the past few games and getting less and less carries. So for me, that's the big part. I wonder, where that offense really goes after White leaves.
Will be interesting to watch there for sure. And what happens with that coaching staff? We know there are some allegations of impropriety surrounding recruiting. So that will be a fascinating thing to watch. Next week, guys, let's just do a little bit of a look ahead to next week's schedule. I know for some of you guys probably already counting up the fantasy points there. You're through to the next round. You're wondering what you're going to be looking at here. What games? And we've got some action again, as we have the past couple of weeks. Memphis, Houston, a fun game there. Memphis obviously lost in overtime today, upset by ECU, but had the big game the week before that against SMU. SMU Cincinnati, guys. This is Cincinnati's last big hurdle. We're going to be watching that one pretty closely.
Oh, yeah. With the way Tanner Mordecai's been playing and that Cincy defense they've been giving up points to a lot of teams we said are not quite as good. SMU's offense again. Tanner Mordecai was so good they sat him for the entire fourth quarter today. I mean, he was amazing. I think he had 350 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. It's going to be a good matchup because if SMU gets up a couple touchdowns on them, I'm going to be honest, I don't know that Desmond Ridder can bring Cincy's offense back and match them. So that's definitely a game I'm going to be looking forward to. I mean, another one, obviously, Michigan State, Ohio State. That's probably going to be the big early morning game that a big noon kickoff group is going to be at. Again, mentioned it earlier. Ohio State really struggled to stop the run earlier in the year. We saw what C.J. Verdell did to them. If that defense plays anything like that, I think Kenneth Walker can do 2 times that because I think he's a better running back than C.J. Verdell. That's a game I'm obviously going to be paying very close attention to, not just for the Ohio State, but for what that could mean for both those teams moving forward.
I think personally in that game, I think the Buckeyes are going to win that handedly because Michigan State, when they play Michigan, they allow Michigan to throw for almost 400 passing yards. And we've seen Michigan's offense is not a great passing offense. And with CJ Stroud and those receivers, I think they're going to be able to pass it. So even if they give up the running to Kenneth Walker, I just think they'll be able to outscore them. And I just don't think Michigan State has the firepower to stay with them.
So the one thing I'll say on that, we saw Jaden Reed, and he's been having a really good season when he gets those one-on-ones. The Buckeyes secondary is not that good. It is not. And again, we saw Anthony Brown had a good game against them. Give me Peyton Thorne and Jaden Reed and Kenneth Walker over what they played in Oregon. Now, I know the defense isn't the same as Oregon's, but CJ Stroud, again, he struggled early. Kenneth Walker, if they can keep the ball away, if Stroud doesn't get into that rhythm, I guarantee you we're going to see early season Stroud, not late season Stroud. I think it's going to be a much better game.
And one last game I want to throw out here for you guys, and I just want to give an update. Oregon is still up 21-14 here. They have the ball again. They are, sort of driving. They get Utah next week. That game's going to determine the Pac-12, and that game's going to determine Oregon's chances to make the playoff. If Oregon wins that game, I think they can kind of limp in as long as they don't lose. I think that basically locks it up for them, right?
I think
Utah and then Oregon State.
I think even if they lose or even if they beat Utah, they play Utah again, though, don't they? Doesn't Utah have the other side locked up? So they would play them for the Pac-12 championship. So I almost positive they'd have to play Utah twice. And I think Utah could get them one of those times, but.
Yeah. And then big game for Jahmyr Gibbs, Felix, against Notre Dame there.
Yeah, I mean, he was locked up by Notre Dame last year, but you saw some flashes. I just think that he's still Jahmyr Gibbs. We all know Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, he's a top 2 or 3 back for all of us at the site and has been since we started it in March. But he's still an under the radar name in the public as a whole. I mean, I think the dynasty community has kind of gravitated towards Bijan Robinson. Some people know, Tank Bigsby, but it seems like Jahmyr Gibbs is still an under the radar name. And it's just a game where it's going to be nationally televised. Georgia Tech has not had a lot of eyes on them this entire season. He's going to have more eyes than he's had on him probably than any other game in the season. And it's a tough matchup. Notre Dame is a good defense. That's why they bottled them up last year. But it's time for him to be more nationally recognized, and he is a little bit. I mean, that buzz is growing around him. But if he can go out and have a dominant performance, or if he's as versatile next week as he was this week, then he's going to be a household name after that Notre Dame game.
Yeah, real quick, just to clear up that Utah thing, they are, regardless. If they lose, unless they lose to Colorado in the last week of the season, regardless of what happens next week, it'll be Oregon versus Utah in the Pac-12 championship. So,
awesome. So some nice potential matchups coming up there. All right, guys, that is going to do it here for us tonight. Thank you for tuning in again here for Coast to Coast with us. Make sure you're tuning in next week for our early show, the tailgate kicking off at 10 a.m. We'll get you guys set and ready for the entire day. We've got CFF, we've got DFS, we've got betting, we've got prize picks, we've got all sorts of different stuff. Again, make sure you're subscribing here to the YouTube channel and setting your alerts on so you know when we're going live. Until next week, guys, enjoy the rest of your weekend here.